But the truth is, sales is all about service. It's about understanding the needs of the people you're talking to and showing them how you can help. It's also about having the grit and the tenacity to explaining when you can't, identifying that it's not your wheelhouse, it's not your lane, and actually walking them through why you can't. You need to have the confidence to move people to a yes or a no. Because when you focus on the context of the person in front of you, their world and their challenges, it won't feel like selling at all. It will feel like solving a problem together. And if the next step is a yes, you may well have started a relationship that will last the rest of your career. Welcome to episode 50 of the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. So excited that we actually made it to episode 50. Also can't wait. We're going to start teasing you with where we're taking this podcast over the coming episodes. But right now, what I wanted to introduce you to was what we call the contextual sales conversation. By the end of this episode, you will not only understand why sales calls are essential for your long-term success, but you'll understand how to approach them in a way that's comfortable, conversational, and aligned with who you are as a speaker or an expert. Through this episode, I'm hoping to remove the fear, show you the value, and help you get started on the right foot when it comes to your sales conversation through the contextual sales framework. So the foundation of my sales, as I've mentioned earlier, was in recruitment and consulting. Both elevated my sales skills. Consulting sales for the sales process itself and for the ability to actually position ourselves really, really well for premium fees. What has been the most surprising in hindsight? I feel a bit like Steve Jobs. You can only connect the dots in looking backwards. But what actually has really surprised me is by working in the recruitment and consulting sector for so long, is that it's the recruitment skills, those interview skills themselves that have really taken my sales skills to the next level. Because recruitment and interviewing skills, when they're done properly, not just as a computer job matching process, when you're actually interviewing someone, what you're doing is uncovering information. You're validating and verifying, you're making sure that there is indeed a fit, and you have to make quick decisions on the questions you need to ask to probe a bit deeper when you feel like not everything is being revealed. What happens so many times when we're actually in sales mode is we don't ask enough questions to understand the core problem and to also understand we are uncovering what is the core driver for wanting to resolve this or wanting to get the next job in my recruitment days. But it was when I actually went into a family-owned business because I thought I was all this and a little bit more, coming from one of the elite players in the industry back to a family-owned business in central Queensland. It was only when I went back there and tried to teach people myself, not relying on the systems of a major corporate, that I struggled to train my people to get the same depth and the same great and amazing results out of recruitment. There were a lot of frameworks in play. If you are a recruiter or in any way, you probably know them. STAR, behavioral-based, scenario-based, and yet they weren't uncovering the key information consistently that I wanted them to be able to do. I wanted our recruitment to be the best standard. I want us to set the benchmark for how recruitment could be in a regional space. So I sat down and developed a framework for our teams called Contextual Interviewing, where we created and curated questions which dug really deep into intrinsic motivations and drivers. We then pressure test what we discovered through scenario-based questioning. It was a blend of psychology, neuroscience, linguistics, and evidence-based questioning processes. And this is why I believe I finally mastered not just sales and questions, but actually being able to teach others how to sell and to ask questions and to have conversations that lead somewhere. It's what lies behind taking a consulting client from an average $5,000 in first project value to $73,000 with a 50% deposit and no clarifying questions. Is because I taught her how to use contextual conversations to deepen the sales conversation and then through this accelerate the sales conversion process. So let's just take a moment to reiterate yet again why sales are so important. Number one, speaking is the start, not the sale. So many people, especially emerging speakers, think that it's all intertwined. While a great presentation can generate great interest, it really closes the deal on its own. Sales is a process that converts applause into bookings. The second thing is, speaking alone is not predictable. Relying solely on your stage performance or word of mouth is like relying on luck. It's unpredictable. Without sales conversations, you actually have no control over your pipeline or your future income. Sales will give you a structured, repeatable way to turn leads into paid opportunities. The third thing is you can't sell without selling. Previous life, I was the director of 2 real estate businesses, and my business partner had this thing that he said all the time: you cannot sell a secret. You cannot sell a secret. And the same with this as a speaker, you cannot scale without selling. You cannot scale without selling. If you want to grow your speaking career beyond your own lunchbox, then sales is non-negotiable. The biggest speakers on the planet have robust sales processes in place, quite often robust sales teams that allow them to consistently book high-ticket engagements. Speaking may get you on stage, but sales is what builds a scalable business. Number 4, sales equals control over your career. When you're not selling, you're dependent on others to create opportunities and close them for you. Sales allows you to take control of your future, to build direct relationships with decision makers and ensure that your calendar stays full, not based on chance, but based on the predictable outcome of your consistent efforts. The fifth thing is that building long-term relationships requires sales, and we've touched on this already. Speaking can get you in the door, but it's the sales conversation that builds trust, credibility, and long-term relationships with decision makers, particularly when you shift these to a contextual sales conversation. This is almost guaranteed when you understand how to do this. Number 6 is sales elevates you from speaker to trusted expert. Many speakers, many of you listening to me, actually want to avoid sales because you see it as separate from your role as a speaker. But when done right, sales actually elevates your status from just another speaker to a trusted expert who understands the client's world. How does this happen? Because we use contextual sales conversations with deep questioning techniques to actually create trust and rapport and to identify what's really going on in their world. It moves people to trust fast. 7, speaking is actually just part of your sales funnel. It is not the sales funnel. It's just part of a broader sales process. It builds awareness and engagement. It may actually build craving for your topic and your style. But it's the conversations afterward that seal the deal. Think of speaking as the top of your funnel, even though most of you think it's mid-funnel or even end of funnel. Sales is a process that turns leads into business growth and, as I said before, turns applause into further bookings. Number 8, your stage presence is not enough on its own. No matter how powerful your message is on stage, most clients won't make a booking decision based on that alone. They'll want to know how you can specifically solve their problems. And this is where the sales conversation matters. By developing and deploying the contextual sales conversation, you can tailor your value to what they're looking for. You can also identify when you won't fit what they're looking for, and you can let them go with ease and grace. And the last thing I want to reiterate for you is even speakers need to be business people. Speaking is actually your product. You are in a business. Even if your complete business is a professional speaking business, speaking is your product and you are in a business. At the end of the day, speaking is a business, and all successful businesses have strong sales processes. If you want to be seen as more than just a performer, if you want to be seen as a professional, as a business professional and a valuable asset to your clients, you're going to need to learn how to engage in contextual sales conversations. All I did in some of the biggest training outcomes that I've had when it comes to sales, all I've done is teach the contextual sales conversations. They're heavy on questions, immersed in story, and very light on telling. That one strategy, contextual sales conversations, heavy on questions, immersed in story, removing, in this case, the telling, delivered a 4 times increase in sales conversions with one of my clients. Now, with an average transaction value of $87,000 in that business, this had an exponentially positive impact on that business fast. And whilst you may be a speaker and not a corporate, it works across the board. My philosophy in here is we all have access to what we can apply. And I take it one step further. Just because you're not a major corporate, just because you're not a consultant, doesn't mean you can't steal the secrets of the greats and apply them to your boutique speaking practice. You have access wherever you look to some of the greatest sales processes in the world. Once you fall in love with them, you understand the power of them, you can simplify them. But here's the thing, I've already done that for you. I've actually taken the last 27 years experience since I first took on that first sales role of my career. I've taken the last 27 years and distilled it into the contextual sales framework. So I'm looking forward to this. But I also know that you can't just trust me, even though I want you to. So if you think about other research, and I've got reams of McKinsey research and reams of Harvard industry research and things like that. But let's go to where we all hang out these days, on social. And Sales Hacker actually has research that tells us that businesses that prioritize sales outreach, so proactively pursuing sales conversations, are 40% more likely to scale their operations in a sustainable way. Simply put, if you want to grow, the contextual sales conversation is not optional, it's foundational. Then there's research by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, which shows people are more likely to trust and engage with professionals who take time to understand their needs. I'll say it again. Contextual sales conversations aren't about pushing an agenda. They're about creating connection and deepening our understanding of how we can solve the problem of the person sitting in front of us. Recently, I was reviewing sales calls and I discovered the fundamental problem that we're having with their conversion rates. Their conversion were well below industry standard and well below what I expected of them as experts in their field. And the reason was this. They were literally asking questions at the start, but just to get to the part of the process where they could present their solutions. They have 3 packaged productized solutions, and they were literally asking questions, not changing their questions based on the answers that were being given, and almost steamrolling into, well, these are the 3 solutions that we provide. Now, there's a few things that are wrong with that. Number one is you shouldn't be asking questions just to tick a box of connection. You should be asking questions and have the ability to ask different questions if those questions uncover information you weren't expecting. The other thing is you're an expert, whether you're a speaker, an expert, a consultant, a coach, a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever it might be, you are the expert. The reason that person is having a conversation with you is because they believe, from what they've seen already, that you have something that is of value to them. So you shouldn't be offering all of your solutions. You should be offering the most appropriate and fit for purpose solution. And you cannot do that if you don't deploy the contextual sales conversation and ask questions and lead into the incremental yeses, which we've discussed in a previous episode. So it's really, really important that you understand that this is not about you going with a predetermined outcome, even when you know it is, because that actually means you can miss vital information in the questions that will uncover the information you actually need to know. So then what is the contextual sales framework? Let me break it down for you in a way that feels easy and natural. What this is, it's actually about having a great conversation, but it's actually about a conversation that leads somewhere. So many people have great conversations with people that don't lead anywhere. And that makes you exhausted, frustrated, and 9 times out of 10, actually broke. So here's the phases. The first phase is the discovery phase. And this is where we have to discover the context. You don't have to be an expert salesperson to ask great questions. The goal in this stage of the process of the conversation is simply to get to know the person you're talking to and understand their world. You're looking to do things that to ask questions that show that you're genuinely interested in their needs, that you are able to uncover the information that you need, and you're actually able to identify what the challenge, or the problem, or the want and desire actually is. The second phase is the create phase. You need to create value in their context. Once you understand the context of who they are, where they are, and what the challenges are, it's time to position yourself as the right fit. But it's not by selling yourself. Instead, you're going to actually ask questions and share stories that clearly show how your expertise aligns with their needs. I liken it to you want to actually find the gap, agitate the gap, and push yourself in the middle of it as somebody who can close that gap for them. So many people, speakers, experts, consultants, actually focus on themselves and what they offer rather than aligning what they offer to the client problem. And this is a difference between being salesy and being helpful. The third phase of the sales conversation, the contextual sales conversation, is you want to explore their concerns. It's an exploring phase. And this is where things get really interesting. Instead of avoiding objections or tough questions, you lean into them. This is about understanding any hesitations they might have, understanding what the roadblocks are to getting a yes, and showing that you're actually listening. So your questions in this phase will not be pre-scripted. They will be a result of the questions, stories, and the conversations you've had until this point. Most people don't go here because they actually fear objections, thinking it's a sign of failure. But really, a conversation and questions that actually bring the objections forward are a sign that the client is actually thinking seriously about working with you. Your ability to address them rapidly builds trust, like no other part of the process. Then we work into the clarification phase. And this is where we want to clarify and reinforce the fit. At this point, we're actually using questions and stories and examples and process to ensure that we're aligning with everything that they've discussed. It's a natural progression. It's not a hard sell. It's kind of like, based on everything we've discussed so far, I'm confident we can create something that achieves the client goal. What you then say, is it okay with you if I share with you what I'm thinking? And this is when you lay out the process, okay? Then we want to close. You actually want to close the call. And this is a part that trips up so many people because you're actually asking for the sale. Now, you may not be asking for the sale because they have to take it back to committee, they have to take it back to association, they have to take it back to organization. There's somebody they have to consult in the decision-making process. The budget's more than they were expecting. There's a whole range of things, right? But it's not about actually that you have to close it on the spot. If you feel like you can, absolutely. But also just do what we call a preemptive close. So ask them how they're feeling right now. All things being equal, do you think we're going to be working together? Is there anything that you need from me to make this a definite yes? Questions like that. Get an agreement in principle that this is going to happen, because keeping it real, most of us are resisting sales because we associate it with being pushy or uncomfortable. But the truth is, sales is all about service. It's about understanding the needs of the people you're talking to and showing them how you can help. It's also about having the grit and the tenacity to explaining when you can't, identifying that it's not your wheelhouse, it's not your lane, and actually walking them through why you can't. You need to have the confidence to move people to a yes or a no, because when you focus on the context of the person in front of you, their world and their challenges, it won't feel like selling at all. It will feel like solving a problem together. And if the next step is a yes, you may well have started a relationship that will last the rest of your career.